It's fantastic to be recognised as having made a contribution to the Scottish game, and to follow in the footsteps of some of the legends, and to be named alongside them is a phenomenal honour.
Who would your own vote be going for this time round, Alan?
Well, I think that everybody's worthy. It's difficult. I know that we have to cut it down, but everybody's worthy, and I'm sure that the guys that maybe don't perhaps get in this year will be honoured another year. But certainly, there's some great names in there. Two great goalkeepers that went head to head, Gorham and Leighton, for instance, and Walter Smith's named as a manager in his contribution over the years also. And if Walter's to get in this year, it would be beside other illustrious names such as Jim McLeish and Alex Ferguson. So there's many great names out there, and it's difficult. Must be a difficult choice.
Do we have, in the current team, do you think we've got a few guys there who will go on to become Hall of Famers?
I hope so. I definitely hope so, Michelle. It's one of these ones just now where there's a lot of good potential with a lot of the younger players. If we can get to a major championships, i.e. the Euro Championships next season, next year, next summer, or the World Cup in 2010, then that's going to give the current crop of players a better chance of being inducted.
I see some parallels to kind of days gone past, the likes of kind of Douglas, yourself, and maybe potentially what might be with the squad that you've now got.
Well, the younger ones, it's potential. They have to realise that. They have to keep playing to a level that Kenny McLeish and players of his ilk, the standards that they set, and that's got to inspire the younger players to be able to follow in those footsteps.
Do you think there'll be more sort of competition to get into the Hall of Fame for the current crop of players? Like in the past, the names that we see, often those at times in the clubs, it was all mainly Scottish players that were playing for club teams then, but now with a lot more foreigners, there's not as many Scots. So do you think it'll be more difficult really for the Scots to get in there now?
Well, again, it's up to individuals, but there's foreign players who have made a contribution to the Scottish game as well, have been inducted. So I think that's correct, and that's the way it should be. But it's also, it must be there to inspire the younger ones, to emulate them and to show the foreign players that they can be every bit as good. And the signs are good in the Scottish game just now, with everybody trying to rear young players through the youth systems. And if they continue to play at a high level, as I think Hibs have done over the past 3 or 4 years, they've had a crop of players who have played together. In the first couple of years, a lot of inconsistency. Last season, maybe a wee bit inconsistency because they lost a couple of players again. But when they kept the same group of players, you could see the strides that they made after maybe the first couple of seasons, where I think 2 seasons ago they were a really excellent team. And only injuries, I think, in the end cost them a higher position in the league table.
Is it difficult?
Sorry, does it please you when you see the likes of Stephen Naismith, Scott Brown being bought by the old firm? It's our own Scottish young players going to the big two in Glasgow? Well,
I don't want to keep saying that it's all about going to the old firm, because the young players, Stephen Naismith was called into the last squad, and there's no reason why, if players are playing to a high level, if these players are going to Ibrox and going to Celtic Park and in their home games against Rangers and Celtic, they're showing that they can compete and outplay the old firm players, then they'll get in the squad and they'll get their chance, without a doubt. If they go to other leagues where there's a high level, then it's got to augur well for Scotland if the player improves. But it's not all about going to the old firm.
So going to Rangers wouldn't necessarily step Steve Naismith's Scotland career up any better. If he stays at Kilmarnock and does well, he's still very much in the frame.
Well, I think what you have to remember is that they've then got to play in front of 50,000 fans every week, and it's sometimes difficult for a player to handle that. That comes down to a mental thing. and if they can improve technically and also show the mental toughness, then there's no doubt that playing at a huge club with the experiences they get and of European football, for instance, and playing in front of those big crowds and doing well in front of those big crowds, then they can become more noticeable. But I would not rule out any young player who's shown up really well at another club.
What you've seen of Steve, what you've seen of Steve, do you think he could handle that kind of pressure? 50,000 people playing in Europe.
I don't think there's a doubt about Stephen Naismith's mentality, and it's all about realising the great potential that he has and improving, just the same as all the other young players like Brown as well, who's going to Celtic.
What about the players going to the Premiership? Russell Anderson looks like the latest one. How much will that bring him on?
Well, he's already a very mature player, Russell. He's been unlucky in the sense that we've had good consistency from the centre-backs in front of him. So it's difficult just to say, right, Russell, you're in, and at the expense of players who have done well. He would have played in the Austria game had he not get injured, so it's one of these, I think, sod's law that Russell has been available for every other game and didn't get a shout, and then when he was going to get a shout, he was injured, so that was a setback for him. But we'll watch his progress if indeed he moves to Sunderland.
Does that show how well the Scotland team's doing just now, that so many big English clubs are after a lot of the Scottish players like it was in the past?
Well, it's great. It's not quite the level which it was in the past, where Kenneth McLeish and Hansen and Souness from Liverpool alone, the Man United players over the years. There was a lot of real top Premier players that were playing in the Scotland team, but maybe we're slowly getting back towards that again. But we have to be confident about our progress, but we must not raise the expectations too high.
Gary O'Connor looks like he'll seal his move to Birmingham. He's another player that fits into that mould of moving down south. How good a move will that be for him, do you think?
Well, I think it's a great move in the sense of his family as well as Gary. He'd done well in Russia. He's made an impact. I'm sure he's learned some new tricks about the game of football by playing in a different league, a different style of football, and a highly technical league as well. But more importantly, his family are settled again in the British shores, and that should give the player peace of mind to go and do even better, as long as he dedicates himself the way he has this last 6 months or so.
Do you see him really developing now into a real, not that he wasn't a top player before, but a right good player on a consistent basis now that he'll be based down in England?
Well, the signs are there for him. He's entitled to feel that he can improve, and we're entitled to think that he's going to improve, and it's up to him. And he's getting good guidance from his agent. We're giving him guidance as well. I'm sure Eric Black and Steve Bruce at Birmingham will help him move forward as well. They've got everything he could ask for at a club like Birmingham. All the experts in terms of fitness and a state-of-the-art gymnasium, and they have everything that they need to make them better players. It's up to the individuals to grasp that.
Did Gary speak to you about specifically going to Birmingham?
No. I've been in close contact with his agent. It
does seem that the kind of Scotland recall almost kind of relaunched his career, so you're taking a bit of credit for that, are you?
Well, it's not about taking credit for it, but we were aware that it certainly helped.
I suppose the main thing for you as Scotland manager is you want your players to be playing regularly if possible. Mm-hmm. I suppose the only danger of these moves that we're talking about just now is that these guys, say Naismith goes to Rangers, O'Connor goes to Birmingham, they don't get as much game time. Is that, you've got to be a wee bit wary about that again?
Yeah, it would be good if they were playing regularly every single week, no doubt about that. Of course, by moving to a bigger club, then they should, if they're playing every week, they should get better. And that's no disrespect to smaller clubs. I think that's a no-brainer. But as long as they're playing enough games to warrant, and you know that the English league can be very much rotation with the huge squads that they have. to cover themselves over the season. As long as he's getting a good amount of games, then I'm sure that he'll still be okay for Scotland.
Do you think Craig Beattie, obviously maybe moving to West Brom today, is that something that maybe he'll have thought about his Scotland career, given you'll move to a club where he's going to get more of a chance than Celtic?
Well, it might be the back of his mind, the Scotland thing, but I'm sure that first and foremost the players would like to get their bread and butter sorted out, and that's by getting a club where he can play regularly every single week, avoid the injuries, not have so many injuries, and sure it's that first and foremost they can do it week in, week out for whichever club it goes to, and then the Scotland thing will take care of itself. If doing well enough, then he'll get picked. If there's others doing better, then they'll be ahead of him. So that's the way it works.
Presumably it doesn't worry you, and obviously you've got players in the Scotland team that do play in the Championship anyway. It doesn't worry you that he's kind of taking that a step down a level, you could argue?
No, I don't think he's taking a step down. I think West Brom could easily compete in the Premier League, Scottish Premier League, and I'm sure that they would challenge Rangers and Celtic. But if he gets a regular game, he's been in the bench a lot for Celtic. I know that a lot of it has been because of injury, but I'm sure Craig will do all the strengthening and get all the help he needs to make sure that he plays a consistent amount of games.
I guess the positive thing for you, I suppose, is that we're now talking about all these players who are pushing to get into the Scotland squad. Your problem, I suppose, now is almost who to leave out, whereas only a few years ago we were almost scraping a squad together, weren't we?
Yeah, well, that'll be difficult now, picking a squad. You could pick 30, 40 players. The first squad I picked for the get-together, I had managers quoted as saying, why didn't he pick my guy, why didn't he pick this one? So I'm going to get all the free advice in the world over the next few months, and it'll be a tough choice, and there will be times when it'll be 50-50, but we hope that come crunch time, game time, that we've made the right choices, and we've got to rely on our experience and our own belief to be able to do that.
I suppose it shows that despite maybe 5-10 years ago I thought there was a dearth of young players coming through. Now all of a sudden we're saying there's these young guys coming through, and it does look, obviously you're saying it's not quite the Dalglish Souness era, but there certainly does seem to be a good crop of young guys coming through. Yeah,
well, I think the Bosman took us all. I think it was a big setback for us. The Bosman. Looking back now, everybody thought it was brilliant for football, but for the smaller countries, it affected them really badly. And the superpowers just went from strength to strength, and Scotland was affected by it, and without question. And then the chairman, credit to them, they've stood by managers. They have insisted on players coming through the youth system, and there'll be, I'm sure that some chairman will take the odd plunge and maybe push the boat out for a player who's going to really enhance the team. But I think that the circumstances have changed, and for the better.